Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. An 18-member joint committee of the National Assembly and the Senate constituted to mediate the prolonged dispute between the two houses of Parliament over revenue share to the counties, after revenue share to the counties was forced to adjourn without a compromise. After members from both sides clung to their hardline positions, the National Assembly had awarded counties 316.5 billion shillings, a figure senators protested, setting it at 335 billion. During yesterday's meeting, members of the National Assembly stuck to their guns, insisting the national government has already appropriated its revenue share and that it would be next to impossible to get a coin from the executive or other arms of government. An argument the senators dismissed, insisting MPs had allocated billions of shillings to government ministries for functions which legally are devolved to other counties. The National Assembly, in consultation with the Senate, are considering speeding up the proposed amendments to the Public Finance Management Act in efforts to solve the revenue standoff between the two houses over county revenue allocation. The bill seeks to allow counties access funds should a disagreement on the proposed amount persist, as it is currently happening. 7 people who had been admitted at the Karimenu dispensary in the county of Nyeri following alleged food poisoning have since been discharged. However, it still remains unknown whether any more lives could have been lost. At least 4 people died and more than 50 others hospitalized after eating food at a dowry payment ceremony. Various leaders have continued to weigh in on the impending second phase of evictions from the Mao Forest complex. The Anglican Church, led by its Archbishop Jackson Olesapit and Nakuru County Governor Lee Kinyanjui, say it is important to conserve the environment, but also opine that it is paramount to conduct evictions in a humane manner. The leaders say consultation is key before embarking on the exercise. And finally, with just 3 days left to the kickoff of the national census exercise, a section of internally displaced persons have threatened to boycott the exercise, citing neglect by the government for over a decade. And that's the news.
Traffic.
Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. Ngong Road is not looking so bad. In fact, somebody is saying, I am convinced that when the Japanese and the Chinese finally complete this road, we will be in heaven. Hey, that's a good thing to say. Globe roundabout heading to Westlands through Kipande Road and Museum Hill flyover. The road is so clear. Mwendo ni kuchomoka teke. This teke language is very used very much appropriately in traffic. Thicker road footbridges had to be welded all the way from China. Kenya has no capacity to weld such mega projects. Because we were asking ourselves, really exactly what happened? Why do we have to get the footbridges coming all the way from China? Luthuli Avenue this morning is looking very clean. Actually, the Luthuli Avenue has been redone. You know, the Governor Sonko has made it a one-way street, made it a foot pedestrian street, looking very, very clean. If you are on Jogoo Road and you're coming to town, I'm sorry, but City Stadium roundabout is not looking so good. If you're on Mombasa Road also coming to town, we've got issues starting all the way from City Cabanas. General Motors is piled up. Nyayo Stadium roundabout not looking so good. And then there are people complaining that those who are picking free newspapers are causing a traffic snarl up. That's a complaint that we have seen throughout this morning. Whatever the situation is on the road, 0719012600 and Spice FM KE, let us know.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Latiff in the studio with me, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and now
Njeri Thorne.
Njeri Thorne joins us. Good morning, Njeri.
Good morning.
Looking all bright this morning.
And cheerful. Thank you.
Cheerful. And welcome. So this morning we're going to be discussing, among other things, so we've discussed the census, and we need to get into the politics of things. And the politics of things is, the census, politicians have taken over the census, so to speak. But also, there has been a lot of issues regarding hate speech lately. So we've seen a senator who's been summoned by the police and told, come and talk to us. This is the Nandi Senator Samuel Cherargei. He was summoned by the police yesterday. He went to the police and they took him all the way to Kisumu and they said, come and take a statement. And he spent a couple of hours there and he issued a statement. Now, the issue here is the police are concerned that a statement that he made recently sounded almost like it was hate speech. And maybe let me just play it for you so that you can hear it.
Na sisi wacha nimalizie kwa kusema hii. Wale watu wanaendelea kupiga vita ya naibu wa rais. We are profiling you. And if you fight deputy president, you are fighting us. Usifikiri deputy ana watu yake. Sisi watu yake tuko hapa. Muendelee kutusi naibu wa rais, lakini mjue we are marking you and we are profiling you. Ikifika wakati tutawashughulikia. Tutawashughulikia, msichezee bwana. Hata yeye hapo ni mtoto ya mtu. Kwani yeye si mtoto ya mtu? Awaje kuchezea bwana naibu wa rais mtu hivi hivi.
Senator Cherargei. Politicians have said this kind of things many times before. And whenever they are put to task over what they've said, they actually now come up and give us different interpretations. This is not exactly what I meant. I meant this.
And the media have taken it out of context.
And the media have taken it out of context. And all of you, basically, what you're hearing is not what I was saying. Why are you misunderstanding what exactly I wanted to say? So the issue of hate speech, if you look at all the cases that have been taken to court over hate speech, if you look at all the issues that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission has tried to pursue regarding hate speech, we've talked about Gatondo South MP Moses Kuria a number of times this morning on other matters, but let's look at, for example, the number of cases that he has faced or accusations that he has faced on account of hate speech, right? Where he has even gotten acquitted in court over the same, and he has had out-of-court settlements with NCIC over some of them. Are we really doing anything in this fight against hate speech? Should we go back to the drawing board and first of all identify what exactly is inciting or hate speech? And where did we begin this hate speech, Maneno? Are we on the right track? Should we, now that nobody has actually been convicted, no action has been taken severely against any person who has made utterances that were thought or considered to be insightful or hate speech, should we just abandon the ship and just say, you know what, forget this hate speech, let's move on with other things, we've got bigger fish to fry?
You know, at some level it almost sounds juvenile. The sort of taunts that young people engage in primary school especially. Someone steals your marble and you threaten that they will see.
Yes.
Yes. They are not promising you the gift of sight here. Utaniona. No. The threat is a beating. That is, of course, if they are in a position
to beat you.
Yeah, exactly.
Or to hire thugs.
Precisely. All this would begin and end probably at that juvenile spot if we hadn't had a history where utterances of this sort have led to some really dire situations where people have died, innocent people have been killed. And it all began with people saying inflammatory things and these things not being checked. And it's not just in this country. The diatribes of this nature have a history.
Yes.
This has been documented, it is known. And for there to have been laws that were created specifically to avert and to ensure that these things don't happen, it's because we understand the end game. If these things are not checked, we understand.
You want to weigh in, Njeri?
I was just clearing my throat, but no, of course it can be very dangerous, and it's, you know, when you say it goes back in history from sort of the Holocaust, there was a lot of propaganda against the Jews in the run-up to the Holocaust. More recently, of course, we saw it with Rwanda, so it can have dire consequences, as CT clearly points out. It's very dangerous, but of course it's also a balance with what's enshrined in our constitution on, you know, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. So where do you draw the line? I think that's one conversation to be had. Politicians, of course, have a right to express themselves, but of course they also have a duty. I think that right comes with a duty, considering the level of influence they have. They do have a duty because they're creating impressions in people's minds, and they're the ones creating sort of agendas and opinions, shaping the opinions of a lot of people's minds. So they've got a heavier duty than, say, you and I. But although you and I probably have a bit of a duty as well, being on air. But I think politicians should have more of a duty of responsibility with their utterances than others. But going back to that clip, because I don't think we dissected it as much as I'd like to, given the political nature of it, he is basically threatening, which is very interesting for a democracy. He is basically threatening anybody who goes against the deputy president, which then begs the question, because he's going to rely on freedom of speech to defend his utterances, but the paradox of it all is that he is threatening people with what they have to say and freedom of expression. So it's quite an interesting one, and of course negating from democracy in that, you know, you cannot oppose our guy. So clearly you start seeing a dictatorship emerging from this camp. Very scary, actually. Sorry. That's the sense I get. I mean, you're saying to us, do not dare go against our president.
And
what
if
about
you dare,
and you will
show
see.
you. Yeah.
What sort of rhetoric? It's not even rhetoric. That is literal speaking.
Who is he actually referring to? Is he saying
Naibu? What did he say? Naibu is deputy?
Yeah, it's the deputy, right?
Yes.
But is he actually saying people who go against, or is he saying people who insult, who ridicule, who?
Well, all of them are, you know,
The same. They all
Well,
against.
but we're allowed to do these things under the Constitution.
Well, it's interesting because
Anasema naibu ako na watu wake.
yes, naye pia ni mtoto wa mtu.
Na yeye pia ni mtoto wa mtu. I mean,
Na usione, do not see that he's a person without people. I'm translating it, I'm transliterating here. And if you think so, then we are profiling you. Now, the moment you use the word profiling
in the Kenyan context,
you know, you've actually changed the tenor, the conjecture, and the content of that conversation completely. You've now entered that very, very dangerous realm.
Even them saying, I think it's very interesting, ata yeye ni mtoto wa mtu. He's also somebody's child. I think he's talking about sort of the dynasties that he keeps referring to, that, you know, those are the powers that be, they're people's children. So I think what the senator here is trying to say, this guy is also somebody. So I think there's a lot of unspoken,
don't ridicule
there's a lot
him.
of nuances in here. There's threats. There's also sort of chest thumping where all, you know, he's also somebody, but there's also that show of support. So there's quite a bit. It's quite a heavy statement he's making there. Sorry, Ndu, I'd interrupted you. Go ahead.
I mean, it's fine. I think we just need to look at a situation where people now will be caught in a quagmire of sorts, because the question it then raises, so what is it that I can say and what can I not say? Because the boundary lines drawn then are quite thin. Because if you look at the Constitution of Kenya, freedom to seek, receive or impart information, when we're now referring to freedom of speech, freedom of artistic creativity, academic freedom and freedom of scientific research. However, the right to freedom of expression does not extend to propaganda for war. It does not extend to incitement to violence. It does not extend to hate speech or advocacy of hatred that constitutes ethnic incitement, vilification of others, or incitement to cause harm, or is based on any ground of discrimination specified or contemplated in a previous article of the Constitution. Now, where do we draw the line between now I am able to express myself freely according to the Constitution? At the same time, this freedom does not extend to where now my speech would affect somebody.
would be interpreted.
Would be interpreted to now affect somebody in terms of, you know, incitement because of their tribe, or incitement to now cause other people to cause that particular individual harm. You see, so now anybody could argue, well, that's what I said, but that's not necessarily what I meant. That was not my intention. Because then a lot of times the intent is what is looked at when it now comes to things like crime or violence, you know. So what exactly in this case is looked at, and how then do we say now what this individual says is tantamount to hate speech, which then is a breakage of the law?
You know, if you look at some, or you listen to some of the things that have been spoken in public by that particular camp that this particular senator seems to belong to, to call it inflammatory is to be polite. These fellows do not have any boundaries about what they will say, how they will say it, who they'll talk about. So it's a trend. And it also tells you two things. One, you could argue that perhaps he's simply trying to demonstrate to his chosen leader that his leader has his full support, and he'll do everything within his means to support his leader. And so he's using violent language, violent expressions, threatening expressions to show his support. That's one way of looking at it. But, as Njeri very clearly put it, this is a national leader. You are actually interfering with the freedoms of others. You are threatening them and telling them that the only freedom they have is freedom that agrees with what you prescribe as freedom and which supports your chosen candidate. That's freedom. Now, if this one is not just quacking like a duck and doesn't have webbed feet, this one even has wings.
This one is in the water paddling away.
Yes.
Can we look at this compared to the situation of former Makadara MP Reuben Ndolo? Reuben Ndolo actually, he stood commanding crowds, saying things where he actually did. This was beyond incitement. He told them.
He gave direction.
Exactly.
He told
them. He said, Wekataya. He did. He told them what to do. And here you are speaking to crowds who are already, they were already pumped up. They were charged. They were ready to go. So anything that was told to them, you can imagine a situation where they followed through on this direction that he gave them. Interestingly enough, Reuben Ndolo again yesterday was in the docks for this same thing. I don't know the details of exactly what it is that he said. However, it was very clear that what this gentleman is saying, what this gentleman was saying was not palatable, if we can say,
which is why I raised that issue. Look, if you look at the cases from Reuben Ndolo to all the others who've been accused of insightful remarks, who've even been taken to court over hate speech, how many have been convicted?
This was my next question.
How many
so when we get to the prosecutorial part of it, this was my next one. When we get to that part, when we say, okay, this person has been arrested, what then is used to prosecute? What then is used to now say, this is what you have done that can bring a conviction about?
I want us to take a break at this point. It's 17 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room right here on Spice FM. Eric Latiff, Okoh, Njeri Thorne, and CT Muga. We are discussing hate speech today. And I'm asking, have we lost the fight on hate speech? Should we just change tack or just completely ignore the issue of hate speech and move on to other things? We've got bigger fish to fry. This is on the back of yesterday's summons and questioning of Senator Cherargei from Nandi by the police. And this is what he had said.
Na sisi waja nimalizie kwa kusema hii. Wale watu wanaendelea kupiga vita ya naibu wa rais. We are profiling you. And if you fight deputy president, you are fighting us. Usifikiri deputy ana watu yake. Sisi watu yake tuko hapa. Muendelee kutusi naibu wa rais, lakini mjue we are marking you and we are profiling you. Ikifika wakati tutawashughulikia. Msichezee bwana. Hata yeye hapo ni mtoto ya mtu. Kwani yeye si mtoto ya mtu? Awaje kuchezea bwana naibu wa rais.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
18 minutes after 8 o'clock. Good morning. And so, have we lost the fight?
Did we begin the fight?
Did we ever begin the fight? Do we actually even have a fight? When they go to court, it appears there's no fight.
At this stage, I'd like to just quickly step in and defend the NCIC. I heard you say they might not be doing a good job.
No. That's not what I said. I said they are actually
National Cohesion and Integration
NCIC has tried to step in as well.
Okay.
To no effect.
I think, of course, the onus is on the judiciary, I guess, then to convict. Maybe that's where the bottleneck is. But also maybe we should look at not just curative, but preventative measures. The idea of cohesion. Are we doing enough as a country to actually stop people from saying these things as opposed to prosecuting them? So yes, prosecuting is a deterrent, but what about the actual cohesion aspect? Do we have, I think this then boils down to, do we have a national identity, something we can all come together under, whereby these comments and these utterances would be water off a duck's back, and that we're so strongly linked, the cohesion is so good that it doesn't matter. I think that's there's a big gap there. So as opposed to just trying to prosecute and catching people out, I think also there is the cohesion aspect that I feel there's a gap there.
And would you say that, looking at Kenya as it currently stands, that our people are willing to work towards cohesion, or are we happy keeping our enemies?
I think our default is we're cohesive, we're one. I think we're divided by others and utterances such as these. I think our default position from time immemorial would be to be cohesive, to get along. I mean, in the office place, we don't have these divisions. In sort of other settings, we don't have these divisions. And it's only in the run-up to elections and when things are heated up, it's only political overtones and undertones, rather, that we find these divisions are brought in. Those are the instruments for the divisions. But generally speaking, I don't see us as divided without the politics. If there was no politics, we wouldn't be divided.
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission is about 10 years old now. It's among the Agenda 4 commissions that actually has remained, and it was entrenched in the Constitution. Part of the mandate is is ensuring cohesion. 10 years down the road, if you're still asking the question whether how far we are in cohesion, you are coming in to actually say, to speak...
Leadership.
They've done a good job.
It takes a while, exactly, and you need the goodwill from the leaders.
So do you see,
who sometimes don't have that goodwill because it works against them for their political
do we see any progress?
gain.
And those are the questions. Do we see any progress, for example, in the journey towards building a cohesive society?
Yes, I do.
Right? If we are seeing that progress, then how come we still are not able to...
The reason it's important we focus on cohesion and not just the hate speech is because, yes, you can mute people with the threat of prosecutions, but if there's still sort of issues boiling under, they will erupt.
They still want to save them. They still want to get
Yes,
them out.
so it's important that, yes, it's a multi-pronged approach. So yes, we deal with the utterances of hate speech, but in terms of uniting Kenya, I think more emphasis should be placed on the cohesion aspect, because you can keep people quiet and people will still talk, maybe just not on public platforms. So they will still rile up emotions, negative emotions, divisions and so on. So you will still have those tensions. So I don't believe, prosecutions is the only way. I think also it's important that we focus on the cohesive aspect of nation building. I'd like to see or to hear CT's point when he says, yes, you feel there has been some way forward, some headway with cohesion.
There's a lot of headway. You see, that you even have a commission means that the problem was recognized and it was understood that there needs to be a platform where a solution can be sought and found. That's one. Two, we are talking about not more than 20 individuals in this country who have openly come out and have been seen to be the sort of people who perpetrate what we call hate speech. If we had a situation where leaders more powerful than the attack dogs that some of the top leaders have were the ones voicing it, it would be cause for serious alarm. That there is hate speech, there is volatile speech, people get arrested. They may not necessarily get jailed, but they get arrested. Arrest is a deterrent. People who make such utterances often think they are above the law and nothing will happen to them. That's why they go around saying the things they do. When they are arrested, taken to a police station, arraigned in court, even if they're not jailed, I do not think that nothing happens. There was a time when Kuria, Junet, and a couple of other people, almost every weekend without fail, would say some of the most inflammatory things you could ever think about. One Friday, they were all arrested and taken to Pangani. I'm told it's quite a choice place for government scholarships of that nature. So, they spent the weekend. The sort of silence
witness from Junet
that reverberated, if I can use such a contradictory term, from those individuals thereafter, it was a marvel to observe. Meaning, they understood what they were doing, and they were now aware there would be consequences for whatever it is that they were going to do.
I understand what you say, and when you say that, CT, and
yes.
You're saying that arrests are a deterrent.
They're a deterrent.
Prosecution is a deterrent.
It's a deterrent.
But then when it doesn't go to the conclusive end. I'm fearing that we are blunting the object.
I am saying
you keep using a sharp panga to hit a metal rod.
No.
You're blunting the panga.
No. The same argument has been used against the DPP and the DCI, and it has been said they keep arresting people, they keep taking them to court, nothing happens. I'm saying, but something is happening and you're calling it nothing. You can actually see something happening and you're determined that it is nothing. When in the history of this country have we had so many so-called important people being arraigned in court? Forget anything else, just arraigned in court. You think it is nothing when an important person has his picture splashed in the papers for his neighbors and relatives to see. It is not nothing. You think it is nothing when an important person is thrown into jail. You may say, oh, he's then removed. these things are not nothing. They may not be as much as you'd like to see it, but it is something. Something has happened and we are seeing it happen. It's a deterrent. Now, the question I would ask is, can we move forward from there? And the answer is yes. And do I think something is going to happen? And again, I say the answer is yes.
What do you think is going to happen?
To begin with, let's talk about the war on corruption, for instance. One of the things that I know happens is that people get their assets frozen. Now, someone doesn't supposedly misappropriate funds. We say steal, let's call it misappropriate funds, because we will determine they have stolen it when the court of law determines it has been stolen. So far, it is alleged that it's been misappropriated so that they can use it. If you make it impossible for them to use it, you have thwarted whatever endeavor that they had. You have thwarted it. Now, there is this thirst for blood. It's like we want to see these people in jail.
But yes.
Because we feel that whatever problem ail this country, these individuals are the ones responsible. And I would
punishment is important.
Say, no, they are not. They may contribute to it, but so do we. This is a joint effort. The problems we have as a nation is a joint effort. Everyone contributes their bit. Even that person who you think is downtrodden contributes.
Talking about contribution, you know, when the Nandi senator came from Kisumu, from the police station yesterday, he was received back home like a hero. You know, like those athletes who arrive back home and he's wearing
the garland of
success, and he was, of course, sitting on top of his top of the range vehicle, and he had, you know, crowds following him and clapping and cheering him. He's a hero.
No,
and that's how they treated him. They treated him like a hero.
Eric, crowds cheering are just that, crowd cheering. Now you have gone a step further and analyzed, and you're telling us they were treating him like a hero. He is their senator. Senators are supposed to provide goodies. We had this discussion not long ago.
So I think they just came there to...
Yes.
They just came there to extort him. They don't care one way or the other what he said.
I think Eric has a point here, because I think what Eric is saying is that he did receive a hero's welcome. And what is ignited whenever somebody is arrested from a particular community is this sudden sense of our guy. Suddenly... you belong to a community and you're not Kenyan, you're not the senator.
He was
Suddenly,
accompanied
there
to the
is
police
another
by
factor.
the governor
exactly.
and MPs.
Yeah, it's. I think Eric is onto something, which is what we need to be dissecting. Yes, of course, during sort of campaigns and elections, and people will turn up for the goodies, the handouts that go hand in hand with our politics and our elections in Kenya. But in this instance, I think we should have a discussion around this idea of our guy, because we're not breaking it down. We're not wanting to talk about the fact that it's it's tribalism. It's the idea of belonging to your tribe before country, and that's why I talk about state building and the idea of building a national identity, so that you belong to your country first, and then these other sort of subdivisions within the country or divisions within the country. I think Tanzania or Nyeri did a very good job of that. If you ask Tanzanian where they're from or what they're about, they won't say to you, I am Chaga. They will say to you, I am Tanzanian. And there's a national identity, there's a sense of belonging to the country. Now, what tends to happen with us is, first and foremost, our sense of belonging is to the tribe before country. And these instances of what we're talking about, I think, serve to illustrate that, and we should use this opportunity to discuss that, because I think it's important. I think there's more to it than just, and they welcomed him. No. What happened is, by arresting him and with what he was saying, he ignited, or whoever arrested him or the situation ignited, a sense of belonging to tribe. It ignited that. Now, what is that about? He might have wanted that, but the fact that he was able to do it within people, he was able to release this sort of charged energy from people with regard to tribe, is important to dissect. It's important to look at. Why does it exist? Why is it so easy to rile up people on tribal lines?
If our constituencies were not based on tribal boundaries, then that question would be easy to understand. For you to be voted in as a leader, you go to the people who speak your language or who have the same mother tongue as you. That's how it happens, unless it's a town constituency, and a major town at that. Mm-hmm. And even then, there will be communities who you will find predominantly in certain parts of that very constituency, and they will determine. And that provenance of population will be tribal, whether we like it or not. I am not demeaning what you're saying. I am merely saying this.
You're reinforcing it in that
No.
leaders actually
No.
need these divisions.
No, I'm not
in the-
reinforcing it. I am stating the fact. And I'm saying that the voter and his chanting are fickle. That cheering may mean what you want it to mean. Today they will cheer one person. Tomorrow they will cheer another person, depending on where they think their interests lie. That is really what I'm trying to tell you. Yes, the tribal element
But we've
as
seen these
ominous.
utterances and, as you call it, mere cheering. We've seen them manifest into violence and killings. So we can't just leave it at that, what you said. Yes, you say today they're here, tomorrow they're here on the basis of politics. But at the deeper end of that conversation is the fact that there are tribal divides and these utterances do get people charged up. And you can say, yes, it's just for the sake of pleasing their leaders and so on. But it's led to violence in the past. Are we going to ignore that?
No. You are discussing something quite different from what I'm discussing.
I am getting to the bottom of the matter. I'm getting deeper into the matter.
You're both discussing the same issue here, and the
Yes,
issue
we are.
here we should be discussing actually, which I raised, is the politics behind, the politics of hate speech. We have seen cases where people have been arrested, have been taken to court on hate speech, and this morning we are asking: are we losing the fight against hate speech? Are we losing the fight against hate speech? We'd love to hear what you think about this. Spice FM KE on Twitter, Spice FM KE on Facebook, and our telephone number is 0719 012 600. We'll be picking your calls right after this. It's 29 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice F. Traffic.
Alright, looks like things on Gong Road are moving along smoothly, and it seems that at least for this morning, the Chinese and the Japanese have come to an impasse, and we can see that people are getting out into the city center. I can't believe that Jogo Road has no traffic, and this was as of 2 to 3 minutes ago. Looking at other parts of the city, Mombasa Road is moving along smoothly, getting through to Nyeri roundabout, where the traffic police are conducting traffic, and it seems to be moving onto Haile Selassie Avenue from the roundabout. Alright, going away from the city centre also is moving smoothly on Mombasa Road. Things have eased up around Westlands Woodby roundabout with the construction of the A104, moving traffic along there. Langata Road coming down into Nairobi West through into the city centre is also moving along smoothly. It's after 8:30 and everything seems to be fine and dandy. Let us know if we can keep you moving in whatever area you find yourself, and we'll let you know the situation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Mornings done right, mature, intelligent conversations. CT Muga, Njeri Thorne, Do Okoh, and I'm Eric Latiff. Good morning. 8:26 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're discussing hate speech and also the politics of it. And actually, Njeri, you had brought in that angle of looking at it from, this is somebody who is talking about the deputy president and saying, you people who are sort of opposing the deputy president, who are standing up against the deputy president, we are profiling. These are the people that he's targeting.
There's definitely an element of threat there, But I think also very importantly, as I said earlier, it's indicative of the type of leadership we would see from the Deputy President, because if this is what his endorsers are doing and he's happy to ride that wave, you can see the sense of what type of leader we would have. And I think that's pretty much the general consensus anyway, so we don't need to go too far into it. But there's an element of fear and dictatorship there, if you ask me. But yes, profiling is a very strong word, as CT earlier pointed out. And it's a warning to those of you who, do have anything to say that is negative against the Deputy President. We're watching you. We won't do anything at the moment. But we will deal with you. We will deal with you. Now, what does deal with you? And this is why I'm saying to you, CT, these aren't mere utterances, and it's not simply rhetoric. I think there has been action that has followed such utterances. So we have to be very careful. Of course, a lot of measures have been brought into place, to stop what has happened previously. But it's not to say it can't happen again if we don't take, the necessary measures. You can't go around inciting people
I'm
like this.
actually not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I probably didn't put my point across clearly.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the cheering,
Mm-hmm.
and I had sort of like moved from the utterances, and I was saying there is this cheering.
Oh, you were saying the cheering is harmless and
No,
it doesn't
it
have the
wasn't
impact
harm-
I'm
no, no, no,
suggesting
no,
it does.
no, no,
Sorry,
no,
go on.
No.
Mm-hmm.
What
This is
I'm-
the cheering of him having been released from police
Yes,
custody
yes.
and coming back and receiving a hero's welcome amongst
Yes,
his community.
Yes, and I'm
Okay.
saying that the support of the public that is expressed in such a manner is fickle. That's the point I was making.
Fickle meaning of no consequence.
No, meaning
Mhm.
you cannot actually...
It can change. It's
Yes, it can change
transient.
for that
Uh-huh.
particular leader at that particular time. Because remember, what you correctly point out, they're showing support.
So it's not even the leader, which further reinforces my point. It's not the leader, it's the situation that they are supporting. The situation being, you cannot take our guy. Our guy boiling down to, let's totally deconstruct this, because these are the conversations we really should be having. Our guy meaning our tribe. Agreed?
Our guy meaning...
Not our senator.
Meaning,
Our
no, no,
guy
no.
usually-
Not our senator. I don't think it's our senator.
No,
They're
it's
not
our,
saying...
no, it's not our senator.
Mhm.
Njeri, you cannot divorce the tribe from these positions, because the gentleman is the senator of Nandi. The people who occupy that place are Nandi predominantly.
I
So
think if
the
you're going
tribal
to talk
element-
about it being our senator, we're sugarcoating the issue and we're not having the mature, intelligent conversations we purport to have. It's very important we get to the bottom of this. When they're saying our guy, I think they're referring to tribe.
But what else could they be referring to? That's what I'm trying to
our
tell
senator.
you. No.
Oh, okay. Just making
No.
sure we're
Or our
on
DP.
The
same
senator
page.
is their son. Their son is a member of their community.
Okay, so the two are interchangeable, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
And I'm trying to tell you that if you look at our politics and the way we shape up our constituency or our counties, you cannot do away with the element of tribe. What you can do is give it a different face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you're saying is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. I'm not watering it down.
Mm-hmm.
I am saying that in such matters, you have to understand that they are of a complex nature and that there are many things at play here. What is predominant and what is dangerous is this. Such utterances feed into already preconceived ideas that people have, and that's the danger. We have already seen what happens when they're ignited. And so when you say that the likelihood of it being ignited again is real, I would argue and say that it can be real, it is still real, because there are people who don't belong to those communities, who live in those areas, who still live in morbid fear to date.
Mm-hmm.
12 years down the line, they still live in fear, even now. When you talk about an election, people move. They more or less migrate from the areas that they reside in and go to other places.
Mm.
It happened in 2017, it happened in 2013. So what you're saying, I do not doubt it. I know for a fact it is real.
Mm-hmm.
All my argument was this. I had moved away from that and said, this matter of a crowd cheering you along. Again, history has shown us that it is fickle. They will support you at this point. At some other point, they will support somebody else. But it is not for your benefit. It is for their benefit. That really was my point.
Let's get some feedback here. 0719-012-600. If you've got any comment on this discussion this morning, we'd love to hear from you. We've got a call on the line. Good morning. Hello.
Morning, this is Maranga.
Maranga, how are you?
I'm fine.
Where are you calling us from this morning, Maranga?
From Choka.
Choka.
Yeah.
All right. What's your contribution on this morning's conversation?
Okay, what I can say about the sentiments of the senator.
Yes, go
Hello?
ahead. Go ahead.
Look,
Yes, we can hear you. What do you have to say about the sentiments of the senator?
I can say that, concerning about the deputy president,
Yes.
the term kushughulikiwa can mean several things.
Yes.
It can mean that the next elections, the DP can campaign them.
Okay, it can have that.
Yeah.
It's a political consequence.
The senator anaweza jitetea kunini from that angle.
That's a very good
Yeah,
point, actually.
that's what I can see. The desire summoned him,
Yes.
and he gave by their fake excuse on about the sentiments. But on the other hand, he had a point.
What was the point?
He's disconnected. So he says basically.
That's a shame. It was a good.
It was
some
a
good insights
it
there.
was good insight that he was
Something
giving. The telephone number is 0719-012-600, and that's what we're discussing this morning. We are discussing the issues of hate speech, fighting hate speech, and what we need to do about that, and the matters that arise out of it. We'd love to hear from you if you've got any contribution to make. Njeri, you were asking a question on something.
I was just thinking that was a very interesting caller. Some good insights from a political perspective, saying that he could de-campaign his opponents. So something more central. I guess I was giving it a much bigger perspective. Something more localized to the politics of the region, in that if you're going against him and you need a ticket for your next seat, or you need some support in your next campaign, there could be dire consequences. So it could be political consequences he's talking about if we're to try and analyze
it doesn't have to be physical
what those
or violence.
utterances were about.
But whatever consequence, it's a consequence that he's talking about.
Which are to be expected. I think political consequences come with the nature of the job. You don't support me, you're not going to get a ticket next time. I don't find it as much as a threat as I'd initially maybe interpreted what he was saying to mean. And not to say that this is the only interpretation, the one that the caller has called in with. Yeah. I don't think that's the only interpretation to give this
brings into
this particular
the issue of saying,
outburst.
you take these people to court and they say, this is not what I meant. This is exactly what I meant. And I was talking about the people who are politicians like myself, who are not working towards helping the deputy president in his political career, and we are saying we are looking at all of you. We are not going to offer you support, the support that you need. You need this support, and that there's nothing wrong with saying that.
This balanced perspective would be easy to understand and accommodate if people who present themselves as being supporters of the deputy president rose up and spoke in a measured, balanced way. But some of the key supporters speak in the same tone. They have the same sort of message to deliver, and the message is a threat. So I don't think Njeri or her imagination was
running wild.
No, I don't think so. Not for a single second.
But is it hate speech?
It is
most definitely. Yes,
it is
falls under the
definitely
definition of hate speech.
Definitely,
it is inciting. It is threats.
Njeri,
it is
you
warnings.
are a lawyer.
Eric, it's
right?
undiluted.
You know
hate
these
speech.
things are going to court. Njeri, do you foresee any kind of conviction on this one? If this matter was taken to court and you are a defense lawyer, you'd come up with a valuable defense.
Yes, there would be a lot of in terms of the interpretation of what I was saying. Of course, it's a broad statement, and that's why they can get away with it in terms of intention comes into it. But very importantly, the interpretation of it. It's so vast that as a lawyer, I would be able to give an interpretation that would suggest it's not insightful.
This whole fight against...
As the caller did, that's
speech.
why I was very impressed, with the caller, with him saying... actually, he meant political consequences, and this is political rhetoric, which then shifts the perspective a little bit. It's no longer hate speech. You're talking to your political opponents, where there's a lot more room for mudslinging and that sort of talk.
That's what you were bringing up when you brought in the issue of Ruben Dolo and the rest.
Right. So I'm saying if we have an outright declaration of what you intend to do that is going to bring some kind of violence to an individual or group of people, then can we say, yes, this is hate speech, and and then some kind of prosecutorial, advances can be made in terms of when you look for convictions, etc., etc. However, when somebody has made a statement that can be interpreted in so many different ways, that's now when you have muddied the waters, because they're not really sure then, okay, their intent, can you prove what their intent was by what they said? Somebody did not come out and say, I am going to, or I'm asking a group of people to go out and do 1, 2, or perform 1, 2, 3 actions by virtue of the fact that, we do not like, or there's some kind of adverse feeling or emotion towards this other particular group of people. So it's not clear. And because of the fact that it's not clear, it's ambiguous just by the very nature of it, it's ambiguous, so you don't really know where you go. What worries me is that some of these things that are said, they may not be prosecuted, but we have individuals who are going around thinking, feeling these things, and you don't know under what circumstances they can now influence others to speak some more or go further to act. And for me, that's what hate speech does. You speak something and it influences someone else to then behave in a certain manner.
The harm has been done.
The harm has already been done.
In the minds and thoughts and so on.
Exactly.
So opinions have been shaped.
Yes. So if you bring somebody, if you bring somebody to court and nothing happens to them, guess what? The seed has already been planted, and they've already been able to move from point A to B, and it has already been done. So whether or not you do something to someone, they're already going around feeling this.
And this is
we've got
why
another call on the line, Njeri. Just to cut you short. Ibrahim, good morning.
Morning to you. I'm from Kisumu.
Ibrahim from Kisumu. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And thank you for calling in. What's your contribution to this morning's discussion?
Well, I've been listening to your conversation.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, I can say, from the sentiments of the senator,
yes,
it is true that, in the law perspective, the lawyers can play around with those words and make it mean something different. But again, to the people on the grassroots, I think they are getting the point as it is coming out of the senator. So, as much as the prosecutor can be with the burden of proof to the extent of the damages that the sentiment can cause, but I can say it has got the damages, which probably injuries are not physical, but actually there are damages as far as those sentiments are concerned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ndu is agreeing with you, and I think she'd like to engage with you a bit on this.
Well, I mean, but the mind is a very powerful. Yes. The mind is a very powerful thing, because now you are looking at a situation where somebody has said something, the seed has been planted, and it starts to grow. When you are in a court of law as an individual, the people that you've spoken to and influenced are not with you, and they're also going and you never know, perpetrating now that thought and moving it forward to other people and spreading. So again, the damage has been done, or the seed has been sown. So you bring him into court and he's let go, and that is done. But the thousands of people that he's spoken to have already been influenced, and their opinions have already been shaped, and the damage or the worry lies in the sense that you don't know what then they will go and do with that thought or that particular action. So yes, I definitely agree with you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, for calling in. Njeri's here.
This is why it becomes so hard to sort of get convictions from any cases that go to court. It's very hard to prove a direct link between the utterances and supposed consequences, unless somebody said something and as a result somebody went out and say killed somebody. But what we're saying and what Ndu is saying is no, these utterances have wider reaching consequences that are more long term, but they're just abstract and they're not provable per se, because you've now infected the minds, the hearts and minds of a group of people, and we don't know. It could be in 10 years that we then see the consequences of those utterances. So it becomes very difficult to prosecute.
Ladies,
but it's still very injurious.
We are speaking the same language. So let me ask you, now that we are seeing that, these utterances that we are saying may have far-reaching and dire consequences in future, but yet when you go to court, and Njeri's people are going to actually make sure that this person is acquitted. There's no case to answer here. Are we losing the fight? Should we change tack?
No,
How
we can
else can
keep
we-
going.
how
It's
else can
not
we fight this?
absolutely. It's not completely futile. The prosecutions, first of all, they act as a deterrent. There's a sense of
Well,
justice.
clearly
in
there's
anybody.
been no deterrence.
There has
Since
been. Who
Ruben
says
Dolo's days.
but who says there wouldn't have been more had it not been for these prosecutions? Do you see what I mean? So I think they have acted as a deterrent. I think just generally, even I'm a bit more afraid of what I say because there is the possibility of being arrested. Not that I would have insightful speech or hate speech, but you do think about things twice, maybe on air and so on, because there's the possibility of an arrest. If there was none, I think we would be a lot more sort of blasé
But
about
politicians,
what
Njeri,
we're
Kenya's
saying.
politicians,
I think politicians, there's been an
have
element of, we
impunity.
haven't completely curbed it, but there's been an element, it does act as a deterrent. But back to my point, what I was trying to say is that can the National Cohesion and Integration Commission focus more on cohesion than on stopping hate speech? It's also very difficult to find. Hate speech happens, in rooms like this, in bedrooms, in dining rooms. How are you going to stop that? So can we start focusing more on the idea of cohesion, which brings in the idea of nation building, the idea of building a national identity and bringing us together that way? Even hate speech will be laughable in 10 years. If somebody said something like this, a crowd would jeer him and would not jeer, but would laugh at him because we would be one united Kenya. So my sentiments on this, to conclude, is that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission are doing a very good job. Of course, the judiciary is the bottleneck in the prosecution, and we understand that it's difficult given the nature of what's being prosecuted here. It's very difficult to prove. But can we start focusing on cohesion as opposed to finding hate speech crime?
I think cohesion and looking at the factor of cohesion is quite important, because I don't think as a country we realize how easy it is to strike the tinder to get into a warlike situation. We've seen indicators of that through the post-election violence, for example. And you see how bad it can get in a very short period of time. But you look at countries like Rwanda, where machinery was used, from media to I don't know what they would call. I can't remember the word they would call for the barazas, where people would speak out against a particular tribe. Where you have now countries now plunging into war, and things like the genocide happened. It is very easy to go from a situation of kind of peace to a really pulled out situation where we're dealing with war. So I think we need to be very careful in terms of what we say, how we are saying it, and to whom we are saying it, because it's very easy to influence a large group of people by 1, 2, 3 words. So yes, looking at situations whereby we're saying coming together, growing together, unified from whatever levels we can begin. It sounds all rainbow and bunnies, but it's something that can be achieved.
0719012600. We're taking your feedback this morning. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, sir.
What's your name and where you're calling us from?
My name is Kirwa.
Yes, Kirwa.
I'm calling from Eldoret.
All right. 96.7 in Eldoret. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning and for calling. What contribution do you have to this morning's conversation on hate speech?
I'd like to let me talk about Gerald Gay's speech.
Yes.
I think it was as much as we say that he maybe he could be talking about politics.
Yes.
He could be talking about politics because if you see, maybe for example, we have our leaders from this region talk about Kutuny, talk about Keter from Nandi.
Yeah.
It is open that they are not supporting the deputy president as the presidential candidate for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So my feeling is that maybe he's talking about politics because you can, if he says that we are tutawashughulikia moja kwa moja, you can't
tutawashughulikia.
Yeah, tutawashughulikia nyinyi moja kwa moja. I think it's very hard because even if you talk about William Ruto, he has million supporters, and also those who don't support him are also millions. So you cannot say that you can pick individuals up to a million. Yeah. So I think he was talking about individuals such as those maybe coming from this region.
City is laughing. I think City would like to counter you on that.
No, I don't. You see, this gentleman comes from Eldoret.
So, Eric.
Yes.
If you come to Eldoret, for example,
yes,
we are living in harmony. In fact, we live in harmony. We don't have any quarrel about each other.
We love one another. There's peace.
We love one another. We don't talk about, even 2022 politics. We don't talk that much. We don't talk about that much. We love our leader, of course, but we don't talk about it every time.
That much is relative.
So I think
just listen to CT and what CT
No.
was
I actually want to listen to what this gentleman is saying, because he comes from Eldoret. He knows the lay of the land, and he will have insights, and he'll understand dynamics that I don't understand. So I want to listen to him. I want to listen to what he has to say.
So I think, let me say it in Swahili, please.
Yes.
Nadhani kwamba matamshi ya Cherargei yalikuwa wanalenga wanasiasa kutoka eneo hili, ya kwamba nyinyi ambao mnamtusi William Ruto tumeanza kuwatambua, ya kwamba ni wewe na wewe na wewe. Na kwamba tutawashughulikia, na nadhani kwamba ni kisiasa, kwa sababu ukifika mahali hapa Eldoret kwa mfano, tunaishi katika jamii nyingi na hatuna uhasama hata kidogo. Na hatuna uhasama. Mimi ukiniuliza mimi kwa mfano, mimi na support William Ruto kabisa 100%. Lakini kuna wale ambao hawamsupport, na huwa tunafanya siasa kwa upole. Kwa hivyo nadhani kwamba yeye akizungumza alikuwa anazungumza kuhusu wanasiasa ambao pia wanamkashifu William Ruto kutoka eneo hili.
But then what does kushughulikia mean? What's the action that you think he implies?
It could be broad, but I think also when we talk, wakati tunatoa matamshi yetu pia lazima tujaribu kulenga kitu fulani. Tusiseme tu kwa kuficha jambo. Tuseme kwa open. You need to be open also at the same time, that nimesema kuhusu hili, ili watu wakati media wanakuangalia, wana kitu ambacho wanaweza wakasema. Isikuwe ni kitu cha kuficha ndani.
Okay, we've dropped the call. Thank you very much for calling, though. You heard what the man is saying.
Yes, he's saying it's purely political rhetoric, and it's referring to his political opponents within the region, so the Kuchonis and so on. I think it can be interpreted depending on who is listening to it. If I, as a listener who then has a show in the morning, heard that, and I am a big critic of him, for instance, supposedly, you know, in theory, hypothetically, let's say.
Purely hypothetically.
Theory.
Let's say. I think I would catch feelings. I mean, of fear, to be honest. It speaks to whoever is listening. That is a threat. If I stand here and point a gun at you, even if it's just pointed at you, Eric, CT and Du will have a reaction.
Of course.
And I've made my message very clear. So yes, we could analyze it purely from political rhetoric. He's speaking to his political opponents, local political opponents. But I think there's also a big and wider message to everybody and the critics. And then on top of that, it also sort of highlights what kind of leadership we can expect.
Eric, if an MCA said the same things, our reaction would be different. If the MP for Nandi said the same thing, our reaction would be different. This is the senator.
It's national government.
It's national.
Yes.
So he's got a national profile.
Yes.
And that's why he actually got national coverage.
Yes. And, my friend, the truth of the matter is this. In any communication, Njeri is actually pointing out to something that has always been at the heart of it. It's called dog whistle conversation.
Yes.
What you think you're hearing and what is actually being said, two totally different things. And there are people who will understand it differently. But that you've uttered it, that in itself raises alarms.
You know, when you talk about this, the supporters and opponents of DP Ruto, it raises the other issue that I think we can talk about. And I'd like us to introduce that topic this way.
Hii kijana anaitwa Ruto, unajua kila weekend anatanga kila pahali. Atakuwa anapitia hizi machorochoro. Akiona kuna kitu inaenda kona mumwambie. Si namna hiyo? Si namna hiyo? Tuhakikishe kazi ya wananchi imefanyika. Tumekubaliana? Ni wangapi wamesema tuache siasa twende kazi? Twende kazi.
That statement made last year gave birth to a movement called the National Tanga Movement. Right?
I it was genius of the DP to embrace
completely
it and amplify it and write that way.
And initially he had started by saying, the president has actually acknowledged the fact that I go and mingle with the people, that I'm supervising national government projects. But then suddenly he also twisted it and said, well, I'm galvanizing people around the movement. We are Tanga movement, and they've got an identity.
They have, and they've got some support. I think my issue with it is that they perpetuate that electioneering mode that we really do not need to be in Kenya for, for the purposes of business, just peace.
Yep.
We don't need to be in a constant state of electioneering. And I have felt we have been since 2017, and that's been brought about by the Tanga Tanga movement, to be honest. That has been my take on it. So there's other initiatives, building bridges initiatives and so on that are going on that are not as political. So I think that's where our focus should be, as opposed to Tanga Tanga. But I think we're going to discuss that later on.
Yes, there's a BBI movement. There's also the other movement still within Jubilee City.
Eric.
It's called the Kieleweke movement. Let me just help you. It's called the Kieleweke movement.
Kieleweke. So that it can be understood.
Kitaeleweka.
It will be understood.
It will be understood. Kitaeleweka. All right? And this is what we're going to discuss in the next hour. Tanga Tanga, Kieleweke versus who are the other guys in the opposition? What are they called initially? CORD, NASA. Now they have no movement.
No, both movements.
There's been the handshake.
Oh, they've got the BBI.
Why I paused,
they've got the BBI.
Both movements are from Jubilee.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things that we're going to discuss is both movements are in Jubilee, and what do we have in NASA? And nothing. It's coming up. It's now 9 o'clock. In the next hour, we're discussing Tanga Tanga, Kieleweke, BBI, and all those things. Keep it right here.